Hello students, today we'll begin with our new chapter, that is our environment. Literally speaking, organisms' immediate surrounding constitute its environment, which includes everything around the organism. In the class 9th, we have studied how various factors in the environment interact with each other and how human activities affect various biogeochemical cycles involving essential nutrients like nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and water. Now we'll study how human activities affect these cycles. Also, we'll study two prominent environmental problems, that is waste accumulation and depletion of ozone layer. Let's begin with this. First topic of this chapter is ecosystem and its components. First, ecosystem. This term was introduced by Tansley in 1935. In a given area, all living organisms regularly interact with each other and with the non-living physical surroundings to maintain a balance in nature. All these interacting organisms in an area, together with the non-living constituents of the environment, forms an ecosystem. There are various types of ecosystems. On the basis of nature, they can be classified into two categories, that is natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. Natural ecosystems are those ecosystems which operate in the nature by themselves without any human interference. Examples are forest, ocean, etc. On the contrary, artificial ecosystems are those ecosystems which are maintained by man and hence are also termed man-made or man-engineered ecosystem. Example can be a garden, aquarium, etc. There is further classification of natural ecosystems. They can be classified into two categories, that is aquatic and terrestrial. And terrestrial ecosystems can be further classified into three: grassland ecosystem, desert ecosystem, and forest ecosystem. On the other hand, aquatic ecosystems are divided into two categories: freshwater and marine. Freshwater are having three categories, that is lentic, lotic, and wetlands. Similarly, marine ecosystems are having three categories, that is coastal areas, upwelling regions, and open oceans. Next is the components of ecosystems. The various components of an ecosystem may be grouped into two main types, that is abiotic components and biotic components. Abiotic components include the non-living physicochemical factors of the environment. These components not only affect the distribution and structure of organism but also their behavior and interrelationships. They can be categorized into two groups, that is climatic factors and edaphic factors. Second category is biotic components. The living organisms present in an ecosystem form the biotic component. Regarding the mode of obtaining food, the organisms occurring in an ecosystem are classified into three main categories, that is producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers mainly include green plants, those organisms which are able to prepare their own food. Consumers are mainly the animals. They are unable to synthesize their food. And decomposers include bacteria and fungi, and the main purpose of decomposers is the decaying process. Next important topic is food chain and food web. The introduction of food chain includes, as we all know, that food we eat acts as a fuel to provide us energy to do work. Same is true about all other living organisms. In any given ecosystem, all living organisms are linked in a systematic chain with respect to their mode of manufacturing food. The interactions among various components of the environment involves flow of energy from one component of the ecosystem to another. The sequential interlinking of organisms involving transfer of food energy from the producers through a series of organisms with repeated eating and being eaten is called food chain. Energy is always transferred unidirectionally, means in one direction only. The important topic is characteristics of food chain. The main characteristic is that there is unidirectional flow of energy, that is, energy only flow from producers to consumers. It never flows from consumers to producers. In a food chain, there are only 3 to 4 trophic levels. The reason behind this will be explained later. Next characteristic is that it is always straight and organism can occupy different levels in different food chain. Next is flow of energy in an ecosystem. The ultimate source of entire energy used by living organisms is the sun, because the green plants in a terrestrial ecosystem capture about 1% of the energy of the sunlight that falls on their leaves and convert it into food energy. This point is mainly asked in the objective type question. And when green plants are eaten by primary consumers, a great deal of energy is lost as heat to the environment. Some amount goes into digestion and in doing work, and the rest goes towards growth and reproduction. An average of 10% of the food eaten is turned into its own body and made available for the next level of consumers. It is also known as 10% law. A 10% law is followed in energy transfer, which was given by Raymond Lindemann. This law states that only 10% of energy is transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. The remaining 90% will be used by the present trophic level in different processes. Therefore, there are usually 3 to 4 trophic levels in a food chain. I hope you'll get your answer why there are only 3 to 4 trophic levels in a food chain. Now look at this figure. This will explain the 10% law. It is giving the figures of the energy transferred from sunlight to plants, from plants to consumers, from consumers to secondary consumers and tertiary consumers. It is following the 10% law, but plants only consume the 1% of the energy of sunlight that falls on their leaves. Next topic is food web. Food web is a network of food chains which become interconnected at various trophic levels so as to form a number of feeding connections amongst different organisms of a biotic community, as you are able to see in this diagram. This is a figure representing food web. Here there is an interconnection between so many food chains, and there is not single direction for the flow of energy. There are various characteristics of food web. Unlike food chains, food webs are never straight. Instead, each food web is formed by interlinking of food chains. A food web provides alternative pathway of food availability. That is the most significant point of the food web. That is, if a particular species is destroyed, the predator can feed on an alternative species. Moreover, food webs increases the stability of the ecosystem. Next is trophic levels. Trophic levels are the distinct sequential steps in the food chain where transfer of energy occurs. For example, green plants that are producers form the first trophic level. The plant eaters, that is herbivores, also called primary consumers, belong to second trophic level, and the flesh eaters, that is carnivores, also called secondary consumers, represent the third consumer level, that is the secondary consumer level, and so on. Similarly, decomposers will form the next trophic level. Next topic is the ecological pyramids. Ecological pyramid is a graphical representation to show biomass or bioproductivity. There are different types of ecological pyramids, that is pyramid of biomass, pyramid of number, and pyramid of energy. As the name signifies, pyramid of biomass gives the information about the biomass. Pyramid of number gives the information about the number of individuals, and pyramid of energy gives the information about the amount of energy present at a specific trophic level. There are few points that should be kept in mind. Pyramids can be straight, pyramids can be inverted, but the pyramid of energy is always upright. There are examples of upright pyramids in some cases, like you are able to see in the diagram. Pyramid of number is given, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. In case of a grassland food chain, that is when rabbit feeds on the grass and fox feeds on the rabbit, these three pyramids are always straight. Pyramid of number and pyramid of biomass can be inverted also. In aquatic ecosystem, pyramid of biomass is inverted. As you are able to see here, I am giving you an example of aquatic food chain where phytoplanktons are eaten by zooplanktons. Zooplanktons are eaten by small fishes, and large fishes will feed upon the small fishes. In this case, the pyramid of number and pyramid of biomass is inverted. The next important topic is impact of human activities on the environment. First term is biological magnification. The concentration of harmful substances increases with every trophic level. This is known as biomagnification or biological magnification. As the name suggests, biological magnification, bio means Life magnification means to increase. The main example is addition of pesticides or DDT. There are certain chemicals which increase its concentration with the passing trophic level. This process is known as biological magnification. Here is given an example of DDT. If you are able to see in this diagram, if DDT is present in water in some concentration, its concentration will increase in producers. Moreover, zooplanktons have more concentration than producers. Small fishes have more concentration than zooplanktons, and this process will continue. This is because a zooplankton will not only feed on a single producer, it will consume so many producers. This term is mainly asked in the examination. The next very important topic is ozone layer and its depletion. First of all, we should know what is a ozone. Ozone is a form of oxygen. It is a triatomic molecule made up of 3 atoms of oxygen, that is O3. Ozone is highly poisonous. Very little quantity of ozone is present in the lower part of atmosphere called troposphere. However, good amount of ozone is present in the upper part of atmosphere called stratosphere. Some 18 to 50 km above the equator and 8 to 30 km above poles. Though ozone is present throughout the stratosphere, its concentration is maximum 23 to 25 km above equator and 11 to 18 km above poles. This rich zone of ozone in the stratosphere is called ozone layer or ozonosphere. It is commonly called ozone shield because this region intercepts high energy ultraviolet radiations to reach the Earth's surface. In the stratosphere, ozone is being photodissociated and generated simultaneously by the absorption of harmful ultraviolet radiations coming from the sun. But the main concern is the depletion of the ozone layer. The thinning of ozone layer is commonly called ozone depletion. Ozone is being depleted by air pollutants. Chlorofluorocarbons are air pollutants that are mainly responsible for the depletion of ozone layer in the stratosphere. Besides, methane and oxides of nitrogen also cause destruction of ozone. In 1987, United Nations Environmental Programme signed an agreement to limit the usage of CFCs. CFCs is chlorofluorocarbon. This is known as Montreal Protocol. As you are able to see in this diagram how CFC reacts with the ozone and breaks down a molecule of O3 into O2 and a nascent oxygen that was mainly responsible for the thinning of the ozone layer, which was known as ozone hole. Decline in thickness of ozone layer over a restricted area is called ozone hole. It was first discovered over Antarctica in 1985. The main effects of ozone depletion are cancer, eyesight, weakening immune system, increased embryonic mortality, and global warming. The last topic of this chapter is garbage disposal. First of all, we should know what is garbage. Waste materials are known as garbage. There are two types of garbage, biodegradable and non-biodegradable. As the name suggests, biodegradable means the waste which can be degraded or decomposed with the help of microorganisms. It mainly includes vegetable peel or the waste of the fruits. On the contrary, non-biodegradable waste means waste which cannot be decomposed with the help of living organisms. Examples include plastics, glass, pesticides, etc. There are various methods of waste management. First is the segregation of the waste. Segregation word means separation. We need to separate the waste into two main categories, that is biodegradable and non-biodegradable. We need to collect the waste. We need to transport it to a site where it can be decomposed, and moreover the waste which cannot be decomposed need to be treated, need to be recycled, and some portion of that waste need to be disposed of. There are different methods of waste disposal. First is sewage treatment plant. Sewage treatment plants are those equipments that helps in the treatment of the waste that is mainly generated from various places. Biogas plant, as we have studied in sources of energy, how biogas plants help us to get rid from the waste generated from the animals. Landfilling means digging the land and filling it with the various biodegradable waste. Recycling means to recycle the waste so that it can be used again. Incineration, the term incineration means to burn the waste products at a very high temperature. Incineration is mainly used for the hospital waste. Composting means to make the compost from the waste product that can be further used to increase the fertility of the soil. Reuse means to use the waste product for another purpose. For example, you are having an empty bottle, you can use it for another thing, that comes under reuse. Here you are looking at few figures that are able to explain the process of landfill, incineration, waste compaction. Waste compaction means to compact or to reduce the quantity of the waste. Biogas generation, composting, and vermicomposting. Vermicomposting means composting with the help of earthworms, because earthworms accelerate the process of composting. Moreover, earthworm is a living organism. It won't cause any kind of harm to the environment. So this is all about our chapter, our environment. This is the most simplest chapter of our science. Thank you so much.